All right, hi everyone, I'm Kara. This is Mickey, Mike, and Cynthia, and our project this summer was mining online data for early identification of unsafe food products. So you can see why Sarah could not remember the entire thing and why we have shortened it colloquially to unsafe foods. And so the main goal of our project was to see whether we could use online product reviews to detect unsafe foods and thereby avoid outbreaks of foodborne illness, allergic reactions, and other issues related to food safety. Food products go through many steps and locations before they reach consumers, and so at any of these steps it's possible that a food could be contaminated with pathogens, with foreign matter, or simply become spoiled, or anything that would make that food unsafe for human consumption. Currently, the process for recalling unsafe foods is very time-consuming. And the longer it takes to identify and recall these foods, the longer consumers are at risk. This is a very simplified version of the process for recalling foods. So if someone gets sick from a food product, they might make a report to their local health agency. If they seek medical treatment, they may get diagnostic testing, and those labs may also make reports to the local health agencies. And the health agencies will monitor these reports and outbreaks, try to look for common sources or causes, and if the evidence becomes strong enough, then they may recommend that the product be recalled, and if the product is recalled, then the company would issue a press release to that effect. But as I said, this process is very time-consuming. So this is an example of a salmonella outbreak where close to 200 people reported illnesses over the span of 4 months before the product was eventually recalled. And it's estimated that many, many more times than that actually got sick from this product and never reported it. So in our project, we're trying to use online reviews from Amazon.com to see if we can speed up this process of identifying potentially unsafe foods. We have a data set of reviews that includes the text of the review that was left on the Amazon website, the rating that the customer gave the product, the date, and so on. And then we also have a data set of information about product recalls from the FDA. I'm going to switch over here. So anecdotally, we've explored the Amazon reviews and found that indeed sometimes the text of the review does relate to an eventual recall. So this is an example of reviews from a product, in this case coconut water. Each dot on this is a review that was left over time, and the y-axis corresponds to the rating that the person gave that product. And so we can see this is the review that I excerpted on the previous slide. A person left a 1-star review saying that they normally buy this product and it's usually great, but this time it was tinted brown and tasted awful. And this review was left about 6 months before the product was actually recalled for mold contamination. Similarly, another person left a 2-star review also noting the mold in the drink and even going so far as to say that they wish the FDA could look into it as it is dangerous. We also have cases where the reviews for a given product that was ultimately recalled are consistently negative for, in this case, years before the product was recalled. And there's one 5-star review, I know you all are curious, and then it's actually someone saying that they have been looking far and wide for a salsa or dip that tastes like vomit and has the smell of a soiled diaper, and they are overjoyed to finally find such a product. So again, we take this as evidence that these reviews could be really useful in predicting whether or not a product will ultimately be recalled, and that's what we set out to do over this summer project.
So as Kara mentioned, we were working with 2 different data sets this summer, FDA recalls of food products and Amazon reviews of grocery items. So our first task was to join the 2 data sets in order to determine which of the Amazon products had been recalled. In the FDA data, recalled products are identified using a universal product code, or a UPC, otherwise known as a barcode number. And in the Amazon data, products are identified using an ASIN, an Amazon Standard Identification Number. So linking the 2 based on these 2 unique identifiers at first appeared to be a fairly trivial process. Unfortunately, it was slightly more involved than we anticipated. So I'm going to briefly walk through the processing procedure for this particular product because this case exemplifies many of the problems we encountered and how we dealt with them. So the product numbers associated with a particular recall are not in a neat list or even in a field by themselves. They're buried in a text blob. And as you can see, this particular one we're looking for is actually even missing the trailing and leading 8s. So first we had to pull out all of the product codes associated with a particular recall without pulling out any of the other number groupings. And many of the barcode numbers are in different forms. They're often incomplete, contain extraneous numbers, or were incorrectly entered. But in order to do a product lookup to find the ASIN, they must be in a 12-digit UPC form. So one of the strategies that we employed in figuring out the correct UPCs was to match patterns against other codes in the group because the initial numbers are related to the manufacturer, so we were able to use this to our advantage to add missing and drop extra numbers. So now all of the UPCs are in the correct 12-digit format, and the particular one we were looking for, we were able to query the Amazon product API to figure out the ASIN, and in doing so, join the product's recall information to its Amazon reviews. So more than just demonstrating that this was a very time-consuming process, this example indicates that the procedure is valuable in and of itself, and not just as a means to an end to get to the rest of our project. So we created a set of reusable tools so that others working with these data sets, or more generally with these product codes, would not have to repeat this. The tools are structured in such a way that a wide variety of users with different areas of interest would be able to utilize them. Users who simply want to make use of the final outputs would be able to download the processed data, whether it be a version of the FDA recall data with all the UPCs extracted, or a list of recalled Amazon products. For those who wanted to implement the functions we use to be able to access, would be able to access them in Python libraries. And these functions could be used to process newer versions of the FDA recall data, or even to work with barcode numbers completely outside of the data set that we worked with. Finally, those who wanted a deeper understanding of our procedure and the motivations behind the steps that we took would be able to follow along in notated IPython notebooks. So once the data processing was complete, one of the first things we were able to do was join the Amazon and FDA data in a Postgres database. It has a very simple design to make it easy for researchers to subset the data and generate summary statistics and visualizations quickly. To showcase some of the capabilities of the database, we have a Shiny web app to visualize several aspects of the joined data. Here you can see the distribution of review ratings for recalled and non-recalled products. We can also visualize the most common Amazon category assignments for recalled products. And another thing that the Shiny app enables you to do is quickly subset the text data and visualize the aggregated review text for any particular product. Now Mike is going to talk about analysis.
So I'm going to go over the analysis that we conducted to get at the heart of the research question. So now that we have all this data, can we actually use the text data to predict whether a product was recalled by the FDA or not? So we have all the text data, and that on its own is very messy and difficult to work with. So we have to structure it in a way that's ideal for our actual models. So we did that in the traditional method of using a document term matrix. So this is just an example for people who aren't familiar with that. Every row represents a review and all the text that is associated with that review, and each column is representing a frequency of word that is present within that review. So as I'm talking about the models that we're doing, it's good to keep in mind that this is the input for the models, and the features for the predictive model are the actual term frequencies. So we first started by doing some supervised learning models, and by that we're meaning that we're learning what terms tend to be associated with recalled products, and then seeing if those resulting terms can be used to predict if a review was for a recalled product or not. So we did a lot of different models, and the general result that was coming out of them was that all these models had a high accuracy but very low sensitivity. So by that, we're saying that accuracy, we can think of it as the % of reviews that are classified correctly, so whether it was for a recalled product or a not recalled product. So out of all the models we ran, the average accuracy was about 85%, so that's around a B+, so mom and dad would be happy with that one. But when you actually look at the sensitivity, it was only 26%. So by sensitivity, we're saying the actual percentage of recalls that were detected within. So within the corpus of text, only 26% of the recalls were typically being identified. So the warning, what's going on here? Something's going on. So there was two things. We were dealing with an imbalanced data set, and then also, even within these recalls, product-specific terms are much more frequently used than foodborne illness-related terms. And this was kind of leading us to the results that we were getting. So to speak about the first challenge, within our data set, we had 1.2 million Amazon reviews for grocery and gourmet food products. 0.4% of those were actually for recalled products. So for machine learning, this is a very common issue, and the problem with that is you do get some misleading metrics. So an accuracy of 85% may seem good, but you could have a very weak model that is essentially saying that nothing was ever recalled. And if that's the case, you'll end up with a very high accuracy measure. So that's one thing that we had to keep in mind. And also with imbalanced data, you run the risk of overfitting your model to these small subset of products that you actually have. So even when we artificially balanced the data, so we did some undersampling of the non-recalled products, the thing we found was that still within these product-specific terms were the most discriminative for deciding if a review is for a recalled or a non-recalled product. So as this word cloud is suggesting, coconut water, as we saw earlier, we had a lot of reviews for coconut water, and that was a very large recall. And so that was kind of dominating our model. And if you looked further in the word cloud, there was a subset of these kind of generic, generalizable food-borne illness terms. So either symptom-based, or we also had ones that were describing something went wrong with the food. So it was rancid, it was discolored. So these were still in the model, they just didn't have a lot of weight in the initial run. So we reran a model using these symptom-based terms. On its own, it had some limited predictive power. So this is an ROC curve, and if you aren't familiar with it, you can just think of the area underneath the curve as the accuracy of the model. So a 45-degree line has a 50% accuracy, and that is the equivalent of flipping a coin or guessing. So if you're looking at our graph here, we ran the model in this example with 10 different iterations, and we had different products within each iteration, so we could see how it was generalizing, and the mean area was just over 50%. So at this point, we were concluding that maybe the terms on their own were not the best set of predictors for this type of analysis. And there's a lot of work being done right now on using these very small bodies of text. So a review is typically only a couple sentences. And so it's much different than using larger bodies of text. So the methodology that we've been using recently and that has been kind of giving us the most hope is unsupervised dimensionality reduction. And we're specifically using something called non-negative matrix factorization. And that essentially takes all these terms and clusters them into topics, and then hopefully you can use these topics for prediction. So running this for our text, we do see some topics that are emerging that are specific to food going bad, or also symptoms. There still is an issue with it kind of being underneath a lot of these product-specific terms, and there's not a lot out there right now for controlling for known topics within NMF factorization. So that's something that we are working on currently and hope to kind of continue in that direction as this project moves forward.
So for the future of this project, there's two primary challenges that we have to deal with. The first one is the imbalanced data. So of the reviews, only 0.5% were actually linked to a product recall. So this is a huge imbalance that we have to deal with, and there's a couple ways to approach that. One is to just get more data, so to get more reviews. And one way to do that is to utilize the Amazon API just to fetch and scrape more reviews. And then another option would be to find other more accessible text-based data sources, such as social media outlets like Twitter, etc. And then the other way would be to explore different oversampling methods. So basically simulating more product recall linked reviews. So we could either randomly generate some by using the terms in reviews linked to a product recall, or we could also just randomly resample reviews linked to a product recall. And at the end of the day, it will probably make sense to utilize a combination of these two solutions. And then the other issue was the classification models tended to classify based on how similar the product is to the recalled products. Instead of using like product defect or recall specific vocabulary. So one way to deal with this issue would be to fetch more lower level subcategories for the products, and we would also utilize the Amazon API for this. And we could use this to get rid of noise by removing category or category product specific terms from the reviews. And then another way to improve the model would be to continue working on feature selection. So we've explored the different reasons for recall, and we've also performed some sentiment analysis. There's lots of other features that we have yet to explore. So, but as far as reasons for recall go, we basically the FDA recall data has just a text blob that's unstructured, and so there's not just a set distinct list of possible reasons for recall. So we performed some topic modeling on this, and we were able to extract some pretty distinct descriptive topics from that, such as the products were linked to a foodborne illness, or there was mislabeling and there were undeclared allergens in it. So because this could result in different types of dissatisfaction and therefore have different types of vocabulary within the reviews, we could potentially use this data in our classification model. And then finally, we're summarizing all of our work on this project on a website, and we encourage all of you to visit it. It's going to have all of the information about our work that we did this summer, including how we compiled and joined the data, our exploratory analysis of the data, our initial supervised model, and future directions for the project. And we would finally just like to thank all of our sponsors who made this project possible.
Any questions?
I didn't see, did you include any, the frequency of the reviews, whether they were clustered in time, whether you would suddenly see 5 negative reviews appear within like 1 day when normally you would only see 1 a day, that kind of time scale analysis?
We did not conduct that, but that's a good suggestion. One thing that is difficult we did explore is the aspect of timing, just with a food product and when the actual recall is initiated. It spans sometimes a year worth of the best buy dates, and also it's difficult to know if someone with the specific food is reviewing that one that has been recalled. So timing in this is really important, but really hard to pin down, but I do like that suggestion.
I'm not sure, you used the logistic regression, right? Or what was your...
One of them, yes, that was one of the models.
So what other kind of methods did you use for classification?
We did some linear and nonlinear models. So we did do logistic with different L1 and L2 analyzation, and also ridge regression. We did some nonlinear random tree classifying.
Have you tried something random forest or boosting?
We did do random forest. We were getting similar results, so I do think continuing to try different models would definitely be a good way to go. But yeah, so that was kind of the general ones that we started with.
Any other questions?
Thanks.